Got to turn that mic on. Former Illinois House Speaker Michael Madigan is going to have to report to prison for 90 months. How long is that, and what's the fine, and what is all this for? Let's talk with the Center Square's Jim Talamonti, who is up in Chicago reporting for the Center Square, keeping us posted as to what was going on in that courtroom. And Jim, holy cow! I mean, you've experienced history here, sitting through that trial, and now through this historic sentencing. Pretty remarkable stuff. What's the main takeaway that you've got here?
It was quite a dramatic day on Friday, and it was a pretty long sentencing hearing. You know, some sentencing hearings last a few minutes, but this one, the judge, John Robert Blakey, was quite thorough, and he ruled on the enhancements to sentencing and mitigations to sentencing. And when he's going through the enhancements to sentencing, based on calculating guidelines for potential prison time, fine amounts, all of that. He's considering the recommendations from the two sides, but at the same time, he's formulating his own calculations. And as he went through the aggravating enhancements, one after the other, siding with prosecutors, the government has proved beyond a reasonable doubt. The government has proved. But then he got to the mitigating circumstances, and this is where he's factoring in, all of the about 200 letters sent on Madigan's behalf, pleading for mercy. His wife sending a video. She's apparently battling colon cancer, and so she's talking about how much she needs him and he needs her. Former Attorney General Lisa Madigan, the former Speaker's daughter, sent letters. Former governors, former Governor Thompson, who since passed away, there was a letter sent on his behalf, and former Governor Edgar. These are Republicans, and Republicans were often not talked about in very nice terms during this trial, especially former Governor Rauner. Well, he didn't send a letter, but so anyway, as the judge goes through these, boy, he's kind of waxing poetic here. I wonder if he's going to, be very, very lenient, and then as he gets to the actual sentencing, he started by talking about supervised release. And that he said after the prison term, but he goes on for a while about this. And boy, is that all that's going to happen here is probation and a fine? But no, he got to it, and this judge was he's been described, and I've seen it in some of the other cases that have gone on while we were waiting during jury deliberations that this judge ruled on. Certainly compassionate, caring, but also firm. And boy, did we see that. He said not only did he read all of the letters sent on Madigan's behalf, he dwelled on them. He really spent a whole weekend on it. But when it came down to it, 7.5 years. In my head, I'm calculating 90 months. What is that? 7.5 years. So 7.5 years prison time. He went over the prosecutor's recommended fine. Prosecutors recommended $1.5 million. He went to the statutory maximum, $2.5 million, and all but said he would have gone higher had the law allowed him to fine Madigan more. So he was, Barack Obama appointed judge, fellow Notre Dame fan. In fact, Judge Blakey teaches, during the trial on Thursdays after court concluded, he would drive to South Bend to teach in the law school at Notre Dame, a Thursday night class. But he was quite emphatic, and so he pretty solid. Now, there were people thinking, oh, maybe he'll get what Ed Burke got, the former Chicago alderman, again, another longtime Democratic Party boss and political control person, and his fiefdom, whose influence went beyond that. But now 7.5 years, when prosecutors had recommended 12.5, and some people suggested that might be a lot. But yeah, pretty. When he went through these, he actually did calculations. Said that, well, the calculations show me 105-year sentence.
Right.
But of course, that and even the judge said, well, this is really this is difficult. This is such a wide range of options here. But
well, and tell us, you sat through the hearings, you sat through waiting for the jury to make up their mind on 20 plus counts. They ultimately came down to just 10. We went through a lot of the wiretap recordings and the undercover video and emails galore. Distill down for people what it was exactly that Madigan was ultimately convicted of, leading to this 7.5-year prison sentence.
Of the 23 counts, these were all public corruption charges. There was bribery, there was conspiracy, wire fraud, but in essence, 6 of the counts came down to a ruse, which prosecutors admitted was a ruse they set up along with federal investigators, FBI, U.S. Attorney's Office working together with cooperating witness Daniel Solis, who was wearing a wire. And this was for an exchange for Solis to seek a state board seat to ultimately step down as alderman, get a state board. The state of Illinois has all these boards and commissions with rather highly paid seats on these boards and commissions. So Solis wanted to get out of the Chicago City Council and get this nice, comfy state board seat. So he said, as part of a ruse set up by the feds. And in exchange, he's directing law business to Madigan's law firm. As we later learned, Madigan was making over $1 million a year most years with this real estate law firm. So, appealing property taxes for mainly large real estate, large commercial developments, high rises, etc. So that was a ruse set up. Given that the feds, had this idea that this was going on, that people were steering business to Madigan in exchange for political favors. Then there were 4 counts he was convicted on related to ComEd. And this is where Madigan's political allies, precinct workers, campaign workers, people in his, in the Democratic Party of Illinois, or more specifically, in some cases, his 13th Ward Democratic organization in Chicago, they would get these jobs where they did little or nothing for ComEd through a contractor. So they were subcontractors. And in exchange, ComEd got legislation pushed through, energy legislation, which benefited ComEd to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars over the years. Over a decade, prosecutors estimated $750 million. But they said that was a very, very conservative estimate, and the judge agreed with that assessment. And of course, all of us have seen utility rights rise during that time. Madigan was not convicted on counts related to ComEd or much discussed Chinatown parcel, a parcel of land in Chinatown, in Chicago's Chinatown neighborhood. And his co-defendant, Michael McLean, was not, they were either found not guilty or the jury deadlocked on the other counts. Now, after the sentencing, or at the end of the sentencing, prosecutors moved to dismiss those other counts against Madigan only. So he will not face further trial. There was also one AT&T related count, kind of similar to the ComEd counts, where there was do-nothing work in exchange for legislation to benefit AT&T. During the trial, I thought that looked like the strongest count against Madigan, but the jury deadlocked on it. So it was a very big, complicated case, and the government just brought mountains of evidence. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of emails, texts, recordings, some with video, some just audio. It was a massive case. It took a massive effort of more than a decade to get this case to trial and ultimately get a conviction. But the government got it. They got their man, and this was the most powerful man in Illinois politics for a long time.
For a long time. He was Speaker of the Illinois House for more than 30 years. He served as the Democrat Party chairperson for Illinois, which that nexus of power gives him party purse powers, and then also the ability to steer legislation through the state house. So pretty remarkable stuff. So Jim, what happens next? He's set to report to prison, October 13th?
That's the date set, and the judge set that date, October 13th at 2 p.m. We don't know which federal prison he'll report to, and there's some ambiguity here. The defense attorney suggested, and the prosecutors acknowledged, that there will likely be a motion to appeal this. There will likely be an effort again, perhaps to postpone. I don't know that just his wife's condition alone would allow for a postponement, but could the judge grant him sort of a stay on that date or a postponement of that date while a potential appeal is considered? So that, and obviously the details still have to be worked out about where he will actually report to prison. So, but that's the date that's set, and if nothing were to change, 2 p.m. October 13th, Madigan will begin that 90-month prison sentence at some federal facility.
And the judge, I mean, he didn't mince words. He kind of talked about, Madigan talks of doing good for the community and helping others. But, I mean, he straight up called Madigan a liar and even talked about how it was nauseating to hear some of these kind of equivocating of sorts of, is Madigan a good guy or is he that bad guy? But he really kind of seemed to hammer in that Madigan was playing both roles.
Yeah, and again, as we learned on verdict day, and I think this was really reinforced by the judge, Madigan testifying in his own defense didn't work out very well for the speaker, the former speaker, and his team. When that bandits tape was introduced, one of the jury members had said that was significant, and Judge Blakey described, as you said, nauseating. He described Madigan's testimony as a nauseating display of perjury and evasion. And also, as you said, you lied, sir. You lied. And Blakey looked right at him. And this is a man who's not always easy to look at, Michael Madigan. When there were mornings when he'd walk by us going in, or walk by me sometime. It was just me, and he'd be cheery and say good morning. Other times you'd get that Madigan glare. And once he kind of looked at me with that sneer that I recall he looked at you with a few times.
Many times. That's right.
Many times outside the Illinois Capitol. And like, wow, this guy's, and the judge said there are two Mike Madigans. A story of heroes and villains. His defense attorney, just before sentencing, just the other day, a teen came up to Mike and asked him, he's going into the trades, and Mike said, well, how can I help? And Dan Collins, who who was really the lead defense attorney, said, I call Mike a friend. I've learned to, and these appeals on his behalf were really heartfelt, far more heartfelt than any appeal Madigan made on his own behalf. He scribbled down when the judge offered him a chance to speak before the sentence was handed down. He looked at his lawyers, kind of wasn't sure what to do, that was a rare moment for Mike Madigan. They took a break, about a 10-minute break. Then he had some notes written on paper, and he read, "I'm sorry for what, the people of Illinois have gone through with this." But this was not something that was prepared. It was just, Well,
it didn't really seem like it was a message of regret or,
no.
I'm sorry that the state's going through this. I'm not sorry for my actions per se, right? I mean, it's an interesting kind of statement that Madigan was able to make. Yeah.
And prosecutors had time and time again said he's shown no remorse. There's been no, contrition. There's been no, and again, and the judge, there were several times during sentencing last Friday when the judge essentially repeated exactly what Sarah Stryker and Julia Schwartz had said in their arguments in favor of the sentences and the fines that they recommended. So when the judge is echoing the prosecutors and you're sitting there awaiting your sentence, things probably aren't going to go very well for you. Indeed, that was the case for Mr. Madigan.
Well, we'll have to get you back on to talk about all of the concerns of a lack of movement on ethics. Obviously, the State House finished up their spring session with no real ethical changes in legislation. So we'll have to have that conversation again sometime soon. Jim Talamonti, reporter for the Center Square in Chicago, all throughout the duration of the Madigan trial. You were there all throughout the jury deliberation, and now we've got this finality with sentencing and the reporting date, but there's going to be a lot more to talk about all of this. Greatly appreciate your reporting as always, and people can go check that out at thecentersquare.com, where you can see his story up right now. Prison looms for Illinois' former man in charge, Madigan. Get the newsletter in the inbox every morning. Just sign up for it at thecentersquare.com, and also be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more Illinois in Focus Daily. Jim, we'll talk soon because we still got a news plan that we got to get ready for the day, all right?
All right, thanks, Greg.
Appreciate you. And on our way out, why not? Let's go ahead and review just a couple of moments of when I had confronted Madigan to ask questions about a variety of things. And this is years ago in the halls of the state capitol. Just a couple of brief little reminders, some reminiscing of sorts from, gosh, how many years ago? 7 years ago now?
Is that the guy from the policies?
Yeah. Illinois News Network, Franklin Center.
When are you guys going to fold your tent? Which one is from the Policy Institute?
Right here.
Right here?
Illinois News Network. Yeah, there.
And you live in Lincoln Tower? We're neighbors.
Are these intimidation techniques?
Yeah, right.
Only if you want it to be.
Yeah, are these intimidation techniques? Only if you want them to be. It's kind of a fascinating journey that life takes us, no question, but we'll continue watching that story. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, wake up with us each and every weekday morning for Illinois in Focus Daily.